There are moments in life that divide everything that comes before from everything that follows. For Marissa Calloway, that moment happened on a crisp autumn afternoon in the backcountry of the Pacific Northwest, an afternoon she would carry with her for the rest of her days. Marissa had always been at home in the wilderness. An experienced hiker and amateur nature photographer, she often ventured alone into remote areas, drawn by the profound quiet and the sense of connection that came from being far from human roads. On this particular trip, she had set out to capture the golden light of fall on the towering cedars and the migrating flocks of geese. But as the day wore on, a sudden weather shift transformed her serene excursion into a fight for survival. The fog rolled in first, thick and disorienting, erasing the landmarks she had so carefully noted. Then came the cold drizzle, a fine mist that soaked her clothing and made her footing treacherous. A slipped step sent her sliding down a steep embankment, where she landed hard, twisting her ankle in a way that made her gasp in pain. She was miles from her campsite, with no cell reception and daylight draining fast from the sky. Though she kept her composure, Marissa knew she was in serious trouble. She tried to hobble uphill, using a fallen branch as a makeshift crutch, but each step sent sharp pain through her leg. She paused to rest against the rough bark of a tree, listening to the deepening hush as the forest settled into night. That was when she heard it, a sound unlike anything she'd encountered in the wild. Not the snapping of a branch from a deer's passing, nor the eerie call of an owl. It was deep, resonant, and close. Her first instinct was fear. Stories of predators, human and otherwise, flashed through her mind. But what emerged from the shadows was not a cougar, nor a bear. It was taller than any man she had ever seen, massive, broad-shouldered, covered in thick, dark hair that merged seamlessly with the shifting gloom of the forest. Its eyes caught the dim light, glinting amber, and in them she saw not aggression, but something startlingly akin to concern. Marissa froze, heart pounding, waiting for it to move closer. The creature Bigfoot, though she could hardly make herself believe it, took a slow step forward, then another, careful as if approaching a wounded animal. It paused, tilting its head, emitting a low rumble that vibrated in her chest more than in her ears. Against all reason, she felt a strange calm replace her fear. With deliberate gestures, the being crouched beside her. It studied her injured leg for a moment, then extended one massive hand, palm open. Marissa hesitated, then placed her own trembling fingers in its grasp. The hand was warm, its strength immense but carefully restrained. What happened next would feel surreal in her memory. A fluid lift, as though she weighed no more than a child, and then she was cradled against its chest. The steady rhythm of its breathing grounding her in the middle of the wilderness night. The journey through the forest was a blur. The creature moved with remarkable speed and silence, navigating through undergrowth and over steep inclines with effortless grace. Each time she shivered in the cold, it shifted her slightly, sheltering her from the drizzle with its own massive frame. She could see almost nothing of its face in the darkness, but she could hear a faint humming low, comforting like a lullaby too ancient for words. Hours later, light spilled into her vision. They had emerged on the edge of a fire road where a pair of startled forest rangers were making their early morning rounds. The Bigfoot set her gently on the ground, gave a brief, almost human nod toward the rangers, and then turned back toward the trees. Before she could speak, it slipped away, vanishing into the mist like a dream. The rangers helped her to safety, but when she tried to tell them what had happened, she was met with polite skepticism. They attributed her account to shock, exhaustion, and the fevered imaginings of someone lost in the woods. But Marissa knew better. Weeks passed, her ankle healed, and life resumed its ordinary rhythms, but the memory of that night remained as vivid as the scent of cedar. She thought often about the look in the creature's eyes, not the curiosity of an animal toward a human, but a profound recognition, as though it saw her as part of its world for that brief span of hours. She kept the experience to herself except with a few trusted friends, aware that most would dismiss it as a fanciful tale. Over the years, she began returning to the same region each autumn, not to seek new photographs, but to honor the being who had saved her. She would hike with care, leaving small offerings at the forest's edge, a blanket of woven wool, a handful of sweet apples, sometimes just a quiet moment of gratitude. She never saw Bigfoot again, but occasionally she would hear that deep, resonant hum carried on the wind. And she would smile, believing it was meant for her. Marissa's story eventually found its way into the hearts of others. She told it at local community gatherings, speaking not to prove the creature's existence, but to share what it had taught her, that compassion can come from the most unexpected places, that the boundaries between species may be more porous than we think, and that the wilderness holds mysteries that defy our need to categorize and explain. In her later years, when she could no longer wander deep into the woods, she kept a photograph on her mantel, a misty tree line glowing with morning light. Beneath it sat a small carved figurine shaped in her own hand of a tall, broad figure with kind eyes. Visitors would ask about it, and she would simply say, "That's a friend who once carried me home." She never forgot the Bigfoot who saved her, not because of its size or the strangeness of the encounter, but because in that moment of her greatest need, something wild and unknown chose to protect rather than harm. For Marissa, it was the clearest reminder she'd ever received that this world is full of wonder, and that sometimes the most extraordinary bonds are the ones forged in silence. Across the vast wilderness between two souls who might never meet again.